And thanks everybody for being here. And also thank you to the translators. I apologize, I only speak English, but I'm hoping you get a good translation as we go through. So, this is going to be a talk, but also some interactive little bits as well. I'm going to talk about my passion, which is how to spark up your innovation. As entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders, what can we do to make our organizations more innovative? So this is me, and this is my personality. And my personality has a big impact on how I get my team to innovate. We have a look here at the top. I'm quite inspired. I seize the moment. The top right, I'm full of good ideas, and I'm quite extroverted. I love meeting everybody here today. People-focused, outcome-focused. I'm doing both. I have a paradox. With my people focus, I like to have empathy and connect and get my team to innovate together. And with my outcome focus, I like to focus, get the results, and be business-like and straight talking. These bits here, this is kind of missing in Stewart's personality. I'm not so disciplined, I'm not so cautious, I'm not so introverted. How might that impact how my team innovates? We're going to look at that. So there's 4 things I'm going to ask you to think about in the next 45 minutes. The first is, what is innovation? And the second, does diversity help innovation? If we have older and younger people, or ethnicity variation, or gender, or diversity in our way of thinking, is that helpful? Or are we better if we all think the same, and maybe we're all naturally creative? Would that be better? We're going to look at that. How can an entrepreneur create an innovative culture? Because it's not really just about the entrepreneur, it's about the team and the culture they create. And finally, how can all of you here today spark up or increase your innovation and what we call your agile thinking? This is your ability to notice your thinking style and switch from being very creative to very intuitive to very critical thinking and so on. Can we do that more consciously to make us more innovative? So the first question I have for you, what's creativity? And indeed, what is innovation? And do you think there's a difference? Are they the same? If you think they're the same, raise your hand. If you think they're different, raise your hand. A few people think it's different. So creativity often initiates an innovation process. Creativity, maybe in my case, as the founder of a business, the ideas were in my head to get them out. But in order to truly innovate, it takes more than having some good ideas and some creativity. Innovation requires process, systems, a culture, and a whole team. We're going to look at the difference. But first of all, if we stick with creativity, what is creativity? Well, my best definition comes from Arthur Koestler. He was Hungarian, he died in 1983, and in the 1960s he wrote the perfect book called The Act of Creation. And he said there are 3 different ways we can be creative. As I share these with you, think, which is yours? Which do you prefer? They were the artist, the jester, and the sage. If we have a look first at the artist, I have a confession to make that although I am creative, the artist, the visual arts, performing arts, the ability to visualize things and see things, for me, sadly, that died when I was 10 years old. Because in the UK at school, you do art up to about 10 years old and then you choose. And I went down the route of science. Maybe it's still in me, but it's underdeveloped. And then there's what we call the jester. The jester is somebody like Elon Musk, who innovates not through detailed research, but by being shocking and humorous and challenging and wanting to change the status quo. Now, the jester, I have that in me, but it didn't really emerge until I was 30 years old. Why was that? That was because my education trained me to be, and excuse the British humour here, the sage. Scientific discovery, inventing things, having ideas, we imagine alternatives. Interestingly, science tends to incrementally evolve, whereas creativity here is more radical, it's more shocking. I discovered when I was 30 years old that although I was very trained here, I was a data analyst and did something called operational research, even some AI, actually my personality is more here. I want to change stuff, make the world different. I did a PhD in how to measure your personality and how to look at your creativity, and I found my ideas here were too radical for many universities and academics. Academics like you to research everything in the field, find people that have recommended improvements, and then build on it. Over here, it's a little bit like something like Uber, which was a shock to the system, a big transformative change. This is Roger Von Eck from Silicon Valley, and his definition of creativity is looking at the same thing as everyone else, but thinking something different. If you want your teams to think something different, you're going to need diverse teams. Diversity in terms of ethnicity, gender, age, but also our different ways of thinking. The worst thing we can do is recruit clones who are copies of ourselves. And I'm sure many times you've seen in some organizations, that is exactly what they do. They recruit people who are like the boss, mini-me's. That's not for the best. So, we can be creative and innovate in many ways. We can really just combine ideas in a new way, or we can look at new ways for existing ideas. This splash that measures your personality is a new way of looking at an existing idea. Or we can take new ideas to new people. Like I'm delighted to have flown here and be here with you. Ideas spread around the world. Or we can create something completely new. I'm hoping you've got the gist that these things are quite different. Creativity is necessary, but it's not sufficient for innovation. So I'd like to introduce you to a friend, a colleague, Jonathan Cannon. I'm the founder, but Jonathan is the Chief Product Officer. When we want to create new products, we build apps, we build platforms and share learning all around the world, measuring people's personality and their creativity. Let's have a look. And we find that Jonathan's quite different to me. In fact, he's psychologically my complete opposite. It's quite easy for us not to get on. I can come into work and by 10 o'clock, I've had 5 new good ideas and want to change the direction where we're going. And Jonathan will say, we have a plan, we need to stick to the plan, we need to be cautious and diligent. So if we don't value what we bring, we'll clash. I'm sure some of you have had conflict, and sometimes when you reflect, it's just because you're so different, your way of being is so different. But if we can value each other, if we map the two together here, we can be incredibly powerful and creative if we work well together. If I can value his caution, his systems, his processes, and if he can value my spontaneity and good ideas, that's a winning combination. So this principle of psychological diversity works at the level of the team as well. So to keep it really simple, in order for us to innovate, we need ideation, but we also need implementation. And that's why everybody here today contributes to the innovation process. Even if you think, well, I'm not an artist, I'm not a jester, I'm not a sage. Even if you think that, although I would challenge it, actually you have a part to play in the process of innovation because we need to structure, have systems, and get things done. So diversity is a driver for innovation. Now, sometimes diversity is visible. When I look at you or you look at me, you can see it. I'm a certain age, a certain demographic. But sometimes deep diversity is invisible. Before I started speaking, you had no idea about my personality and how I was going to come over. Sometimes you need to get to know people to find out about the diversity. Sometimes it's observable and sometimes it's not. But the role of a leader is to get the best out of the diversity in their team. So the way we look at this is a pyramid, and it culminates in innovation. But to start, all leaders that want to innovate, they need good self-knowledge. That means some reflection, some self-awareness. It means knowing your values. It means understanding your natural personality. Are you more of the jester or the artist? Or are you more of the person that implements the systems? You need to know that. What stresses you is part of your self-knowledge. And I'm going to ask you in a moment to look at what might stress you as well. Because stress kills your creativity. If we're afraid, our creativity goes right down. So we start with self-knowledge. The next layer here is about valuing deep diversity. Now, when I went to school in the UK, admittedly a long time ago, when I had a beautiful set of hair, when I did that, nobody taught me at school to value people that think or behave differently. There was no lesson on that. I've had to learn this in organizational life, and it's a choice. I can decide I'm going to value people who are different to me. I want to hear their views. That comes first. If we do that, we have a chance of engaging in what I call agile thinking. Agile thinking is where I have the skill to direct a conversation in my team. Maybe there's a crisis and I need to calm everybody down by saying, let's clarify the problem. Write it down in a sentence. What are we addressing? I'm bringing people into a grounded place. Or maybe I then need to say, okay, I want 10 ideas. I can open things up with creative questions, brainstorming questions. Maybe there's a time for me to ask my team to be critical and look for the flaws in the plan. We might have some great ideas, but are they illegal? Will they work? Are they dangerous? Let's filter our ideas down with some good critical thinking. But ultimately, we need to use our intuition to choose the best things to implement. Ultimately, we need to be in touch with a sort of inner sense. That's agile thinking, and I'll share how to do that shortly. If we do all of this, we can co-create and we can innovate together. I've seen many, many organizations over the world that don't do the first 3 steps. They have leaders who are tough, outcome-focused, to the point, business-like. They go straight to the top, innovate, get it done. That tends to get results because people do respond to clarity on objectives, but it rarely gets the best innovation. The organization tends to grind, and if they create fear, the creativity will dip. So, I hope I'm selling you on the idea that you need some diversity here because it's personality, it's ability, but it only comes to life if a leader can collaborate and get the best out of the team. Have a look at these words. Each of these words contributes to an organization being innovative. Some of the words are obviously creative, imagination, being adaptable, and some of them link to implementing, being purposeful, being structured to get things done. I want you to have a look at these words and choose one in your mind that you think will help you innovate. Whatever you do, which of these words, it's a strength you have and it will help you innovate. Now they're color-coded because they cluster together. I've done lots of stats to analyze a million people using this Some of you filled in the questionnaire. You're in my database for analysis, and I know how these things stick together. And we can put them into a circular model because personality turns out to fit quite well around a circle. And I'm going to get you to think now about which you actually prefer to use. Are you like me, inspired, big picture thinking, extroverted? Or are you like Jonathan, more disciplined, down to earth, and so on? I want you to have a think about which of these helps you innovate. But in addition to that, I also want you to think what you might do too much of. Because sometimes we think we're giving our best, but we're overdoing it. I might think I have a lot of good ideas, but if you have a look at the top here, I sometimes get feedback I'm a fantasist, I'm too creative, or I think I'm being spontaneous and seizing the moment. And at the very top, it says chaotic. So we can sometimes overplay our strengths, and again, the innovation will go down. So when have you done this? When have you done too much of a good thing? And when has it limited your innovation? So what I want you to do is turn around to somebody and tell them about when you maybe do too much, but also tell them when you do things effectively. I want you to do both. And we're only going to take, 2 minutes each way. Now this is a chance for you to talk to somebody you don't know. So you'll get more stimulation, maybe if you turn around and don't chat to your friend, but find someone you've never met before. Pleased to meet you. That's what we do in England. And have a chat with them and tell them about a strength you have, what you overdo, and hear back from them. We're going to go for 2 minutes each way. All clear? Off we go. You will see you've all got a little coaster as well that has this in Spanish for you. So use that as a reference. So make sure you switch over. You've had a couple of minutes. Make sure the other person shares something of their strengths in innovation and something about how they may overdo it. Okay, if I could bring your focus back now, come out of your conversation, and I'm interested to hear from maybe one or two people, just very briefly, what happened in that experience. If you wish to share anything that came from that. Does anybody want to share? Is there a mic for anybody that wants to share? You can share in Spanish, and I'll have it translated by magic. Who's going to share? There must be somebody. Yeah? Okay, so you immediately found a difference between you that would have been invisible until you have a conversation. So you talk more, you're extroverted, but you're more people-focused, a little bit more empathy. Yeah? So even though you've only met 10 minutes ago, you started talking about how you get stressed out and how you respond differently. Yeah. And it's easy. Thank you. That's pretty good going for just 4 minutes, isn't it? Yeah. With someone you've not met before. So thank you for that. What you've just engaged in is a form of valuing the diversity of the opposite, which is a bedrock of being innovative in a team. So thank you for that. Now, if you are leading a team and you want the culture to be innovative, you often have to do these opposite things. You're more extroverted, you're more people-y. As a leader, I need to get the best out of everybody. A leader needs to create a culture that does these seemingly opposite things. So it's not easy for a leader to get everyone to innovate. So firstly, we can have a look at extroversion and introversion. You, sir, will naturally communicate well, energetically, get things going. This is your natural style. Yeah? I'm not sure how introverted you are, but maybe you like to listen more. Somehow we need to do both if we're going to innovate. What about the people-focused, outcome-focused? Well, you'll find from Silicon Valley, one of their strap lines is move fast and break things. You've probably heard that. That's essential if we're going to innovate. But if we move fast and break things just with outcome-focused, we create fear. Because people want results so much, they're afraid to fail. You need to balance it by learning to love failure. And that's where your people focus comes in, because you don't judge people. if something they did doesn't work. You say, okay, what can we learn from it? What can we learn together? So by taking the judgment and the sting out of it, when we move fast and break things, we get learning, and it's the learning that creates the innovation. Now for me, I'm naturally up here, big picture thinker. I have lots of ideas. Sometimes I get attached to my ideas and say, that's the one we're going to do. But really, what I've learned is you need to test your ideas. Get other people's ideas, run a trial, and see which one works. That's the A/B testing. But when we do this, we need to test in a way that limits the downside. We don't want to do a 12-month test that costs $1 million and puts us out of business. That's not a good test. So I've learned to innovate, you need to shorten the cycle to get more feedback and reduce the risk. So there is a myth that entrepreneurs are big risk takers. I'm an entrepreneur, but I work really hard. It looks like I'm taking risks, but I'm doing everything I can to keep the risks as low as possible. In fact, to me, they don't feel like risks. They look like risks to everyone else, but I'm keeping the risk down with lots of hard work. And finally, interestingly, to be innovative, we need to create a culture that is both disciplined, but also inspired. I'm at the top, I'm inspired. Seize the moment. I don't need to have a boss. I'm a free spirit. I can create ideas and possibilities. But is that disciplined enough to actually make innovation happen? It's not. You need discipline down the bottom. But the discipline that I learned, to show my age, 25 years ago, I went on a 5-day project management course. Gantt charts, resources, detail. And I found that it's too slow. It takes years to deliver. So the discipline we need is where we iterate, where we use an agile methodology with stages, feedback, and then choosing so we can be inspired and change direction to follow the most innovative route. Somehow a leader needs to do all of this, and that's where the team comes in. It's impossible to do it all yourself, but you create the culture that does all of these. Now, you're going to find out in a moment how many of these 8 you naturally have. And we're going to do that with an app. So I'm going to ask you now to all get your phone out, and you're going to scan this QR code, and you're going to go to Lumina Splash, and with your iPhone or Android, download it right now onto your phone. And I'll show you the process it will take you through to get in 2 minutes, you're going to have a quick assessment of where you are here. So when you download it, it will first show you a moving splash, and then you say, do you have one? You'll say, no, I don't. Then it will move through and ask you for your name. And when you put your name in, it will ask you questions, and you can either agree or disagree, or you can swipe. It'll take 2 minutes to do this, and within 2 minutes, you will have a splash just like the one that I showed you for me and Jonathan. So let's all do that now. Take time to do it. There it is on one screen. When you've done it, by the way, and you have your splash on the screen, be a little bit nosy. Turn around to someone else you've not spoken to, so maybe rotate around and ask to have a look at somebody else's splash and show them yours. Yeah? So a chance to talk to someone else. 2 minutes. When you've created a splash, for those of you that have done it first, just let me know by holding up your phone so I can see we've got some nice new splashes created. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you. Great. So if you have got your splash done, thank you, sir. If you've got your splash created, I want you to find someone that wasn't able to download for whatever reason, and just go and share it with them and talk just for a minute about who you are and these 8 aspects of your personality. Let's have a go at doing that. So you're going to mingle a little bit more. If you've got your splash complete, find somebody to talk to who hasn't been able to do it so they can see what it looks like on your phone. So when you have it done on your phone, find someone who hasn't got it done and just introduce yourself and show them this is my personality, my way of being. Maybe ask them, do you think I would be good for innovation? See what they say. Be curious. So do that now. We'll just take 2 minutes to do it. Find someone to speak to who you've not spoken to so far, and make a new friend. As we're doing this, if anybody wants to raise their hand and tell me there's something they've learnt about who they are or their innovation, you can raise your hand and I'd like to hear. Has anybody learnt anything new about themselves? You like the inspired bit, so we have that in common. Seize the moment. You don't really want a boss. You don't need a boss. You're a free spirit. Yeah. Did you know that before? Mm-hmm. Yes, perfect. Sometimes it reinforces what we know. Sometimes we have a surprise. So, thank you all for doing that. For those of you that couldn't get it to download, you can do it later. But I will just in 10 minutes' time share with you a QR code to do a longer version. If you want to do like a 15-minute version and get a rigorous assessment, which of course is my passion because I'm a numbers guy as well, you can do that after today. I'll give you a link for it. I know some of you did that in advance of today. So, the final few things I want to share with you are around agile thinking. You've had a look at your personality. You've quickly assessed these 8 dimensions. The one practical thing I want to leave you with is how you can help your colleagues engage in agile thinking. And this is the way we go about it. We have a look at our convergent and our divergent thinking. So who here today likes to diverge in their thinking? You have an idea, thank you, you have another idea, you're going this way, you like to just explore, use your intuition, your feelings, to go wherever the thoughts take you. Who likes to do that? Got a few hands raised at the back, thank you. Some of us like to converge in our thinking, particularly in business organizations. We're always trying to focus, get the priorities right, get things done. So who likes to converge, have a good analytical argument, get to the truth, and close in? I'm getting some more hands raised as well. The truth is, of course, we do both, but we do have a preference. So you've probably realized in that last exercise, some of you are naturally creative thinkers. You think outside the box. And some of you are emotive thinkers. You don't rationalize, you just use your intuition to decide what feels right. This tends to diverge your thinking. Some of you are database thinking with the blue. That is, you like to clarify, get the facts, where are we now, define the problem, look at the detail, and don't move before we've got things clear. And some of you like to look at that data and engage in critical thinking, to analyze it, to check what's right and wrong, and figure it out analytically. This tends to converge your thinking. Which is best? Which do you need? Convergent or divergent? You need both. It's a silly trick question, of course. You clearly need both. The challenge is, to be innovative, we need both. But most of us lean one way or the other. So what do we do about that? So this is the key thing I wanted to share with you, is that as a leader, I need to realize, first of all, what are my preferences? And then secondly, I need to realize, how can I direct my team into different thinking styles? This is an art as well as a science. And the main way that we do this is through asking questions. So let's say my team is faced with a crisis. We go in and our computer system's down and customers are complaining and I have an emergency. If I'm the leader, if I'm just being Stewart, I could go straight to creative thinking and say, what are we going to do? But actually, a better thing would be to say, can I clarify the problem first? When did the system go down? What do the IT people say about when it might come up? Which customers are complaining? And so on. So I like to get the facts first of all. By asking those questions in a calm way, I take my whole team into database thinking. Then I might go up to creative thinking. Okay, we have a problem. Who's got some good ideas? Let's have a brainstorm. If I want to be really creative, I have lots of creativity techniques. Sometimes I say to people, think of someone you admire in your life. I did this the other day, and somebody said, it's my partner. I admire my partner. I said, okay, everybody in the room, you are going to solve the problem as if you are your partner. Sir, what would your partner say? And so on. Just for a few minutes to get people's creative juices going. This is a bit the jester. So with creative thinking, we need a little bit of humor, and we need to loosen people up. When we've done enough creative thinking, we'll have got some ideas. But this is where the critical thinking comes in order to analyze the ideas and choose the right ones. So we might find out that some of the ideas are dangerous, high risk financially, or the staff won't do it. We strike off with our critical thinking the ones that won't work, and we analyze the ones that are left. But here's the interesting thing. We don't end on our critical thinking. We end with our emotive thinking, because usually when we make a decision, it needs to be instinctive. We trust our intuition to figure out in the options, that's the one we're going to do. Many businesses miss this. They think that you need to end with critical thinking. And it's certainly true in all the organizations I've worked with globally. The higher up you go to the C-suite, the more critical thinking you get. And the more critical thinking you get, the less innovation you get, because people get scared to express their views because they'll be wrong. There's a strange inverse relationship. So we need critical thinking, but it needs to be of the right proportions. So we like to end with our emotive thinking. So I may ask the team, having heard the facts, having heard some ideas, having critically analyzed, what does your intuition say is the best way forward? And that is an interesting, practical way of engaging your agile thinking. I hope you find that useful. Those of you that filled in the questionnaire before today, there was a link sent out. You will have been emailed a report. If you want to do it after today, I'll show you a link as well. On page 9 in the report, this is Stewart's data, so I'm disclosing more on Stewart's thinking style. And it tells me I naturally prefer creative thinking. So if I'm working with a team, if I don't discipline myself, I always start with, what's a good idea? How are we going to be creative? Which is not always the best place to start. This is my order. I will engage in critical thinking, normally of other people's ideas, which is not a good thing. That's a joke, British humor. I do creative thinking, critical thinking. It's a big effort for me to do database thinking. I have to really make an effort, but of course we can all do it. The question is, what is your order? Is there anyone in the room that thinks you're like me? You do creative thinking first, then get a bit critical. Anyone do that? Yes, thank you, sir, at the back. But we all do it differently. Who naturally, like many C-suite leaders, starts with critical thinking? You're quite tough-minded and analytical. Are you here today? Yes, thank you, at the back. And some of us start with database thinking. I worked in a IT department for many years, and they always started with structuring, analyzing, getting the data for at least a month before we had any good ideas. Who likes to use your database thinking? Yeah. And of course, some people use their intuition, their emotions. Who immediately goes to your intuition and your feelings? Thank you, sir. So you get the idea. We have a preference, but it's best to be disciplined. So I'm drawing to a close, and I think there will just be 1 or 2 minutes for questions in a moment. But I'm hoping I've conveyed to you what innovation is. I'm hoping you've got the idea that diversity of thinking, gender, ethnicity is all helpful. I'm hoping as entrepreneurs you now have a good idea on what to do to create an innovative culture. And I'm hoping with this agile thinking idea you've got some practical stimulation for doing it differently. So If you want to fill in a longer questionnaire afterwards, there is a QR code here, and we'll automatically email you a nice report. I'm also going to be around on the stall over here if you want to talk about it. But I think we do have just 1 or 2 minutes now for any final questions we might have. If anybody wishes to ask. Yes. Yep. There's a mic here. The mic's coming. Yep. Yeah.
I'm sorry that I arrived late, but there is a bit of a problem with the entrance, so I usually arrive on time. I do know the Brits are very punctual. My question is, I don't know if you're aware of the changes that Chile is currently experiencing with a new law called Karin Law or Ley Karin. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
Please tell me.
I can explain you later. That's not a problem. So this new law is presenting some new opportunities for all of us in this country to develop some soft skills.
Great.
Okay? Yeah. It's mandatory. So pretty much we need to go to the C-suites and say, you know, that way how you approach your team is not the best.
Yes.
It's not ideal. It is not actually cool to talk to people like that, or basically to be an idiot, you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty tough, the law in that aspect.
Which, if I get what you're saying, it's when senior leaders communicate with the red style, but overextended, when they're doing it in a aggressive way, that's really unhelpful.
But it's also not only between your employer and you as a worker, it's also around society.
Yes.
So you could actually get somebody to fill a complaint for a customer that it's been disrespectful, or I don't know, something.
Okay, so the law doesn't just cover the workplace, it's everywhere, and it's around
society.
Sounds like it's around society and respect.
Sure, exactly.
How interesting.
So it is very interesting. Yeah. It's going to be like a social lab for the rest of
the
world.
Yeah.
It is. It is very interesting. So my point is, I do relate to the critical thinking C-suite mindset that you arrive with a very innovative solution, but they are afraid. I do have a creative mindset, which is a bit of a problem from time to time when you want to reach that kind of people. But these roles now, they need to invest in soft skills development.
Yes. Okay?
And it should be top down. Now is the
ideally it would be.
Ideally. What would, understanding that time is very limited, also resources. What would be the main soft skills that you would suggest?
Like what would I recommend or suggest?
Yeah. What would be your intuition?
From my perspective, if there is a movement to make it sort of law and compliant, I think that's a good intention. And if it releases funds because people have to do stuff, that's probably a good thing. My view is, it is always best if behaviors are role modeled from the top down. The way we really learn soft skills is when we see people more senior to us wherever we work doing it. I think you're suggesting that some may not, yeah? So in the event that that's not possible, I also believe in a sort of a bottom-up approach as well. And I've kind of experienced both in organizations. When I worked at British Airways, I mentioned earlier, I was mentored by somebody who was given the job title of corporate jester. And that's because at the time, British Airways, it was more outcome-focused critical thinking. And the CEO realized we need more humor, we need more creativity. So someone was given a role to move around and introduce that to the engineers, the cabin crew. And my role, I joined that movement. And it was kind of both top-down and bottom-up. We went to people that were most interested. That was the bottom-up bit. And lots of people got really excited that they could be more creative and innovative at work. And we also tried to get key role models to advocate.
What was the outcome?
At BA, it was successful in that over maybe a 5-year period, the organization put more innovative products into the market. So I think it did have a really good effect for maybe 5, maybe even 10 years. Of course, things change. leaders change, cultures change, and it's not maybe not quite as creative as it was at that time. The other thing I would say to answer your question, if you want to keep it really simple and you want role models, we really need to teach them to listen and be open to feedback. It's really that simple. Sometimes we have to make it sound a bit more fancy because that sounds really basic. So we dress it up with other soft skills language. But my experience is we're helping everybody in organizations hear each other better and be open to giving and receiving feedback. And that helps with everything that I've spoken about today as well. So thank you for your question. It's a really profound and great question. I do believe thank you. I'm being told I've now gone over time, so I'm going to say thank you for your energy, thank you for your questions, your engagement, and enjoy the next couple of days. I'll see you about. Thank you.